We can hear you.
Awesome. And screen is ready to
All
go.
good.
Amazing presentation, guys. It's hard to champion that, I believe. So I'm going to try my best, and I'm going to put a full disclosure that I'm actually a marketer. So what do marketers do? We ruin everything. So I've got my hands on Chatbots, and that's how Yarnly was developed into an agency a year and a half ago. So we look at chatbots from a very basic level, essentially, probably integrating with the overall digital strategy. And I'll take you through some of our clients, our current clients, our past wins, something we're doing with COVID, and yeah, just general case studies. Now, I'm gonna, at this stage of the presentation, as we should be in a room, I usually get people up to do a bit of a stretch. I'm one of those speakers. So I've introduced something a little bit in so I can keep your attention. These little eggs up here where you see in the top right hand corner of the presentation, take note of how many are there in the presentation, and you might be able to win something at the end. You can see here there's a QR code saying scan me throughout the presentation. If you open your camera, if you have I think it's a Series 11 iPhone Plus, Android is pretty good, you'll be able to get into our bot. But do hold tough. I want you to be able to answer the questions as you get in, but I'd love to know how you go. Okay, so let's get into this. I'm going to kind of go a bit sharp into the evolution because I think Bora did a really great overview of this. Understanding the context of what a chatbot is, what the evolution of it is. It's basically, as we know, it's informational, like referring to Ingra's examples of a library and a depository, but personalized is the key, because the value that we're getting from bots, certainly integrated from a social perspective, is that we're able to have a lot rounder visual social identity from a user coming through, for instance, Facebook Messenger into a chatbot, and then obviously going into the transactional environment. So we're looking heavily at WeChat and kind of the communities that are, I suppose, simultaneously locked down from the web, that are subjected to these apps, but what's actually happening on those apps in itself. So I'll skip a little bit through this. But the drivers of deploying what bots we work with is basically reestablishing our need. So we're looking at sales and marketing teams, service obviously that we've touched on, and partner programs, employee assistance, and customer insights. So when we talk to a client, we identify what their needs are, and it's pretty, for Yarnly in itself, we service predominantly marketing teams, comms teams, kind of incubated teams within the broader organizational org chart, for instance, so that they can have quick wins, they can actually nurture their customers from a marketing perspective, and actually test and learn in an environment that isn't kind of predominantly, I suppose, reliant on FAQ service and frontline staff. So that's where we come into the marketplace to kind of specialize in helping those teams. So our clients do vary. We do have a lot of creative initiatives from media, which is fun, and we do have a lot of interesting content that we'll get into. But where I want to focus on from my perspective, which is a little bit, I suppose, right field from the presenters previously, is that my background, I've been in digital and social media for 10 years and specialized in one of the largest general insurer. I ran their social team. And when I decided to launch Yarnly a year and a half ago, it was really off the back of understanding where the evolution of communication is going and where people are comfortable having current conversations. And they're comfortable having conversations in Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Instagram DM. And when you're looking at the users of certainly mobile devices now, which everyone has one in their back pocket, this is going to be the first year, coming down to the eMarketer chart here, that mobile devices or messaging apps, beg your pardon, is actually going to surpass social network users. So if you can remember, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, Facebook split out Messenger itself away from Facebook. And it was a bit of a strange move at the time, but they were obviously getting far more engagement and interaction from people wanting to have that one-to-one connection and communication tool, rather than, I suppose, the novelty of what social was or Facebook was predominantly, placing your kid's photograph and then being having engagement to get likes and comments and shares. And there's certainly that has evolved even today with Instagram removing that capability, so it's less I guess stress on younger kids coming up. So that's where we sit into it. So looking where people are communicating and what can we do to help support brands and businesses to be able to have conversations with their customers where they're already familiar in having those conversations. So looking at the ecosystem with Zuckerberg, he has launched a bit of a slide here. This is basically the messaging apps at the top that are available that are obviously you'd be very familiar with. But Zuckerberg has launched on the left hand side is interoperability. And interoperability is a project and a scope of work to essentially combine WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger and Instagram Direct, which is the DM, into one utility. What that means is that there's going to be essentially billions of people or millions of people on those platforms that we can reach with chatbots, with predetermined conversations at scale. Now, the general ecosystem of how, I suppose, telecoms and communication service providers are looking at is an initiative of people and how they are willing to communicate. And the other initiative on the right hand side is RCS. And RCS is an abbreviation for Rich Communication Systems. And that is essentially a Google initiative that is in partnership with pretty much the largest telcos in the world to essentially increase or upgrade SMS. So it's like the SMS 2.0. So essentially will enable SMS because this, as you can imagine, it's a default text capability on every phone that you can get. For instance, if you're, an Optus or a Telstra, you can text people freely. There's not that isolated community like there would be, for instance, with the initiative with interoperability is in, Facebook Messenger is one utility versus DM and LinkedIn. I know that when I get messages direct, I'm always recalling where did that person, what's their platform of choice that they want to communicate with me. So RCS is basically identifying the chat or the SMS capability is to upweight the experience. So it's allowing that channel to have GIFs, preempted buttons, very similar to a Facebook Messenger chatbot that you would have in an experience. So the value of that is essentially the bots that we are creating now, which coming back to Borat's comment is, you can have a really crap experience. There's people that are not necessarily executing in the manner that they should be executing, but we are in our infancy stage. So what we're doing now is essentially looking at the bigger picture of the interoperability and when those three networks are going to combine, but also that bigger picture is the RCS. So that's the value of looking at this and understanding that, I suppose, people are changing how they communicate today. So off the back of that and kind of coming to what we are doing and identify how we are supporting businesses right now is people that are approaching, I think we're in a kind of a watershed moment, to be honest. People are certainly evolving their offline activities with events. Certainly in this moment in time that we have to practice social distancing, it is evolving and innovating how we now communicate. Certainly that we should be in real life today. So what we're seeing and what I'm certainly seeing in the last 3 weeks, the people that are now considering, and possibly why you're on this call, is to understand how they can communicate at people at scale, but also what I've identified is brands, businesses that have large offline communities that you would see here, for instance, like the events companies, universities, like Ingra has kind of just articulated and experienced through her projects, and just general community-based initiatives, councils, and people with brands and businesses that need to communicate to a large-scale community. So they have basically a database, but they've never really utilized it. They've never had to bring that offline experience onto a hardcore digital strategy and nurture that customer experience. And they're learning how to execute campaigns at that level. The other examples that we're seeing of businesses that are coming through from local offline communities, so cafes, gyms, beauticians, they don't have a database. You know, your barista doesn't ask you for your email, and they don't capture customers. So what we're actually evolving in a strategy and a strategic approach for these companies is that, for instance, a cafe, we can have a QR code that you're experienced just down here on the left hand side with Scan Me, is that if, for instance, if you're waiting for your coffee, you could have a gently reminder is to go on their email list by going into the bot. The value of jumping into a Facebook Messenger bot is that you will become a subscriber to that channel. So it's essentially increasing your database and the ability to communicate with your customers at scale. But also, for instance, in the moment that we're looking and facing right now, it provides a unique way for a user to just take out their own device and scan, don't have to touch anything. So offline, small cafes, small businesses are able to utilize this now, and literally within 30 minutes we could have a bot ready to go for them. And kind of coming back to the point of, I suppose, we as an agency come in and approach business models at the needs base. So what do they need, but also at the level that they need it. So coming back to Bora's point as well earlier on in the piece, if you're looking for a multi-channel approach with chatbots that you want to integrate, WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and all multiple different chats, you do need a very solid, robust platform to be able to manage that end-to-end experience. Certainly, what is the point of that as well? Is it service? Is it sales? Is it marketing as well? So the platform of choice is essentially very important. However, platforms and the capability is literally bolted out of the gates in the last year, and has enabled small to medium businesses to now have the same technology that large corporations only had really access to. So chatbots and marketing. I was briefed that we couldn't play video just for bandwidth. So if you do want to experience some of our bots, you can again pick up your phone and scan the QR codes just down here, and you can get into them. So these are some of our clients. On the left-hand side, health was just a demo. So we've put this together for COVID to be able to identify people that potentially were having symptoms around the virus, that they could log their symptoms and then go back to a database. Essentially, if a government initiative or a community-based initiative could then obviously identify hotspots. That was just off the back of what could we do to, help support, people that wouldn't necessarily understand how bots work and how we can actually reach the community in the device that they have in their back pockets now. So we would have linked that to Facebook ads, pushed out the bot, they would have clicked in and then obviously access that on a daily basis. Why within is, I'll jump into the next slide actually and go through that. But on the right hand side is the art gallery, New South Wales. We don't have a QR code right now because we've halted all activities again because they have closed, and we are reinventing that strategy to bring art online. So the bot is actually going to host artist experiences, and also looking at integrating AR into that camera activity as well, all through a chatbot. So it's coming into gamification, it's coming into user capability, and just really, having something fun. So with the meditation app that I'm going to dive into, this was an interesting one because, again, it was a initiative that they wanted to start a meditation challenge, and predominantly and traditionally you would have had your Facebook and your normal channels that you would have sent out your advertising to, but they were using email triggers. And what we are seeing even pre-COVID was email open rates are down at 20%. They're not getting traction, and people aren't obviously checking their mail as if they would inbox messenger message to their phone. So we have, and also in the current climate, when we're actually advising people in this moment in time from a recovery marketing strategy, is that, I think every man and his dog has sent me an email in the last 2 weeks in regards to their stance on COVID. So if you can imagine, you are now going to be you're battling with the tension. So what we did for Why Within is that they wanted to come to a channel that was less noisy, because brands and businesses haven't predominantly jumped on this as of yet, because it's essentially an unwritten playbook. So the people that we work with have open minds to be innovative, open minds to be handheld, and yeah, just creative as well, and taking a chance to do something different in their organization. If they are able to do that, then they get a lot of wins. What we did with Why Within as well is what we are doing is incorporating mobile marketing and beacon technology. And this is actually the card that the user would download into their mobile wallet. Now, the value of mobile wallet and why that ties in with chatbots is because we deliver it through our bot. So again, a user comes in, they sign up to the 5-day challenge, and we ask the user to download their 5-day pass. That goes directly into a mobile wallet. I'm sure people will be familiar with their bank card in there, and that cashless economy. So the card would go into the mobile wallet, but what that allows us to do is, for instance, a bricks and mortar store, if a customer was walking past and they were about 50 meters away, they would get a notification straight onto their phone with whatever offer or initiative that business wanted to tell them in that moment in time. So it's essentially present moment marketing. It is, you know, something that we can deliver now, and it has never essentially been done before. So, well, at this level and affordability entry point. So that's pretty exciting, and that's kind of the way the world that we are moving to. And going to jump into a couple of case studies, which was retail bricks and mortar, again coming back to it. So it was a beauty retailer, and we introduced a bot to be able to have easy booking functionality. There were standalone stores across Australia, and our highest, we basically started to increase booking rates through the assistant by 45%. And we had fewer steps. So it enabled users to see the advertising through Facebook, targeted, segmented, personalized to who they were as a human, bring them into the chatbot experience by clicking, you know, send me a message, and then we would nurture that relationship. To get them in to book an appointment, but B, thereafter know when that user has completed that appointment, so we can, you know, ask them for feedback, and then understand that customer life cycle by sending proactive messages out to that user into Facebook Messenger saying, hey, do you want to book another appointment? So that's just one example, pretty straightforward and simple. And this was actually the digital program with Messenger and membership. So yeah, we grew 74% of customer questions, and they were again coming back to the demand economy, or the demand community. People want answers now. You know, 3 a.m. in the morning is more than sufficient for someone to want an answer or book an appointment, and bots can do that, but they don't eliminate human handoff. They don't eliminate human connection. And you need to build a bot with persona, with brand identity, understanding A, who your customers are, but B, what you want to represent, and allows the brand to have a better connection. I think there's a misconception that automating and going to a chatbot is disconnected from that engagement of your brand and your customer, whereas in fact the knowledge, and when done right, is you can learn far more from the user itself. And I think coming back to Bora as well, then when a user is in these experience, it's interesting what they will actually tell you and feel comfortable in communicating with you, because I think they know that there's a level of ambiguity, that they can just say whatever they want to say without judgment. And we have got very interesting, I guess, better than a focus group, put it that way. And, you know, that enables the brand and the business to take those learnings really fast and either product developed or change the experience if there is an issue. So coming to you and what we can do for you as a whole, as an industry, as social media managers, as agencies, marketing agencies getting into this space. A business is ready for a bot. So to define your business case, we need to understand why you want to communicate, basically. So this is a comms plan. and we just need to be familiar with how we are talking to the users. Strategically, as a social media and an advertising strategy, it's very successful. The budget for, so if you are running multiple ads and have weight on your social, not even necessarily weight, but if you're playing in that space, it's a no-brainer to have your user, rather than click into a landing page that you'll get penalized from Zuckerberg, you can get into a bot. So that is essentially the value of being able to define your user case. And the solutions, what you need to do, yeah, you purpose build, you know, you have extensive industry knowledge, and the conversation is essentially what we need to focus on. So I know I'm getting wrapped up. That is us, and we're Yarnly, we're based in Sydney, and make sure you scan and count your eggs, and we'll see who won the prize on the other side. And that's me.